If you care to be the man that God wants you to be, you should take a rest on the Sabbath day, which is the seventh day, and there receive the breath of God. Be the foremost recipient of the breath that burst out on the seventh day. What is my dream tonight? A group of us, we were taken prisoners. And I was placed in some kind of a cubicle. And I guess my fellow friends who were taken prisoners had also been placed in the same way. I was so afraid because they placed us in cubicles like as though in a solitary cell. And how long would that be? I wondered to myself. But interestingly, it's a very highly techno prison. We were able to connect with each other while we are still in the cell. Meaning that the walls of the cell became somewhat transparent. And through that transparency, or through a video that is being played on the wall, it is as though my fellow prisoner, my friend, was right there with me. But yet we are actually unable to cross to each other's domain. We are still in our cell, but we can see every one of us right there. But every one of us is actually tied up to a cell. But we see each other like as though we are there together only via a video, a wall that apparently is transparent, or I'm not so sure whether it's transparent or not, but I can view them in that wall. Okay, that's the first part of the dream. But I felt sad because how are we going to communicate with each other? Yes, we have a playground. We can see each other. At least we are not so torn away from everybody. But we can see each other, but we are not, in a way, communicating. And then in this dream, I was suddenly able to do something very interesting and important. I was able to hear the voice of anybody out there. If that other person has something very important to say from his heart, and if he had that, I would be able to hear that voice in my ears, in me. And hearing that voice, I felt I've communicated with that person. Waking up from this dream, it was clear to me how to interpret the dream. But I know it has a message to tell me, but it was clear that I had an understanding what the dream is about. You see, all of us are in our separate cells too. And we are seeing each other in the same ground. But actually, we are not really communicating with each other. That's right. You are not actually communicating with the world. And the world is not actually communicating with me. It's a kind of a video play, you may say. It's a 2D world, as I mentioned in my previous video. But then, in this dream, I'm told very distinctly and very importantly that my ears are more important than ever. I need to hear the voice. That's right. I need to hear the voice of anyone out there who is speaking from the heart. Not from the mouth, but from the heart. That's right. And upon hearing that voice, wow, I feel that I have communicated with somebody. And when I have communicated with somebody, in that dream I felt an overwhelming joy, like something is filling me up. Let's go back to the Torah. In the story, it is written that God spoke and the world came to being. Every day in the progress of creation, God spoke and then the world takes place. Now, think very carefully what that means. Notice the power of this voice. And why is the voice so powerful? Because the voice comes from within. Breath is within. Whereas what you see is the two eyes. So what you see is outside, but the breath or the voice is from within. So when God brought out what was from within, a 2D world sprang out. A 2D world is creation itself. But creation without the breath will not bring about a finishing work. And that's why on the Sabbath, God said He finished all His work. And why on the Sabbath? That's right, because on the Sabbath, there is a 2D collapsed. What do I mean by a 2D collapsed? You see, in my previous videos, I said that when two opposites come together, there is a nullification. And in this nullification, there is a burst of breath out. And this nullification is important. And this nullification is what God meant when He said that in the day you eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall surely die. Because the creation itself is the knowledge of good and evil. But creation itself must collapse through a nullification of the two opposites. That is called death. Only upon the death of that creation will the breath be brought forth. And this breath is a tree of life. And that's why it's important to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which causes death. But at the same time, you must realize that death is also important because it allows the man to breathe the breath that comes from the creation itself and make the 2D world into a 3D world. You must remember that man is creation itself. Man is part of creation. And for man to receive the breath, it has to receive the breath from the creation itself. So that's why man have to complete itself only on the Sabbath, when the two opposites collapses. Upon the collapse of the two opposites of creation, breath is burst out, and man is the recipient of that breath. And that's why it is written in Genesis chapter 2 that God breathed into man the breath of life. See, God did not breathe into man the breath of life on the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, neither on the sixth day. God didn't breathe that to man, the breath of life. Why? Because man is only a creation. But on the Sabbath, something very special took place. There is a nullification of two opposites. The burst of breath came up from creation itself and was breathed into man. And man participate in the breath of God. And man now become a living soul, the Son of God. And very interestingly, you must note, how is it that when the 2D world collapses, the breath came up? Because God breathed and the world came into being. With every step of the way, God had to put his voice inside the world before the world came into being. Therefore, the collapse of that world will bring back that breath out. What breath? The breath of God out of the 2D world. But man is the recipient of that breath. And so man received the breath of God, and man became the sons of God. Men have a very special place in this universe. And I'm urging you to be the man that you ought to be. And today, the Jews are the smartest people in this world. And why? Because they understood the importance of Sabbath. From day one, they were told to keep the Sabbath day holy. And they are the people of God that kept the Sabbath holy. They became the foremost recipient of that breath of God. And in this way, God said, "You are my chosen people." So that's why the Sabbath day must be on the seventh day. I can speak about that in other videos. So, if you're keeping the Sabbath day, if you think it is Sunday, you're on the wrong track. The Sabbath day must fall at sunset on Friday evening to the sunset of Saturday evening. If you care to be the man that God wants you to be, you should take a rest on the Sabbath day, which is the seventh day, and there receive the breath of God. Be the foremost recipient of the breath that burst out on the seventh day. Now, if you're confused about the nullification of two opposites, you have to follow me in my other videos. As I have said, every video that I create is a kind of ad hoc. I don't have a speech in front of me, and it's not prepared in any way. A dream would appear in my night, and I would commune with myself through that dream. And this has happened for so many years, and I did it by recording them. At first it was recorded in audio, and now I record it in a video. And I thought that it'd be good if I just open it for everybody to hear my dreams and my interpretations of the dream. And I didn't mean to impart any religious belief upon you. But basically, I've understood the truth when the angel spoke to me about the truth. And I want to tell it to the world if I can. And I know it will go to the world. But to help you to understand this, the holy books, they're not easily understood because they're all written by mystics. And mystics don't speak in a voice that is common to your language. So that's why you're hearing me in a very strange way. That's fine. If you care to know more, just follow my videos. You will catch it one day. So before I close the video, I have to make some very important point. You may ask me, "Hey David, I have got the breath of God. I'm breathing every day." That is
I could use it. You see, in Genesis chapter 1, God created man and said this. He said that in the image of God, He made man. So in other words, you were made in the image. You were made as a 2D creation. It's only on the Sabbath when you breathe the breath of God, then you become 3D. But then you ask me, I'm breathing all the time. You see, what's happening is that when you breathe in, you do not observe the breath as a 3D. What you did was you observed the breath only as a 2D. So you're still participating in a 2D dimension. You have to learn how to breathe the breath in as a 3D. The immediate reply must be, then how do I have to observe the breath so that it is observed as a 3D? You see, when you use your thought to observe your breath, it is 2D. You need to observe your breath from an observer inside yourself to make it 3D.